Don't you want it? 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 You lose your little mind. My Deadlights.
Welcome to the Deadlights podcast, Mini. I'm your host, Mini Sam.
Mini Leslie here, bringing you your mini episodes for your mini satisfaction.
Tell me when. How many?
That many.
This is it?
That many.
That's the amount.
That's you right here.
You're right in there.
Right now.
Right in the Minisode verse.
Right in the mini, sir.
Minisode. The Minisode. Going to the club. With the Minisode.
Oh, God.
Here we go. And
yes.
off we go.
Let's
onto
do
another
it.
Minisode. Buckle
Beep,
up.
beep.
Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen.
Because today, we're going to talk about
Real horror.
real fucking horror.
So we thought we're both fans of true crime.
Yes.
Getting to know Sam and Leslie a little more.
Yes. Join us.
Join us. We like true crime.
Actually, I love true crime.
It's an interesting and morbid fascination that we share.
Yes.
I don't know. How did you get into true crime?
Well, you see,
Pregnant pause.
getting a little bit, personal.
Okay. Didn't know Sam and Leslie.
Join us. I lost my mom when I was 8. And it was very brutal. And then after that, I feel like I've always had the question, who done it?
Mm.
And then more and more information was given to me the older I got. Lost her when I was 8. And then by 16, I think my adopted parents finally told me the truth about what had happened. Excuse me. And then after that, I think I started questioning how do people get there? So that is the approach that I see true crime, and I am always wondering what their motives are, even though sometimes I know we don't need them. It's just something that this person wanted to do, and sickly, it was just a fascination of theirs. So yeah, that's how I started getting into it.
Having a more understanding of how these minds actually work.
Because I think, we're all very unique in the sense that we can make and interpret things to our own personal, opinion. So, why murder? Mm-hmm. How is that your brain been wired to find that to be joy? Because there's been some of them that have talked about how they've never been able to feel happiness or joy until the moment they have the power to remove somebody from this life. So,
and it's I think it's somewhat similar fascination and kind of almost quest to understand how the human brain kind of works. For me, that's where a lot of the fascination comes from, and really getting down to the motives of what pushed this person to do this thing at this time, and then why, and I think it's a culmination of things of upbringing and brain chemistry and the actual specific situation that they're in at that specific time in their life, all kind of this perfect storm coming together.
Nature versus nurture, and
nature plus nurture, I think, is kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
It's a combination of both, and it coming together to a boiling point to push someone to do, crazy and fucked up things.
Yeah. Also, there's this research being done about if a massive head injury as a child could then reprogram that child, to then not I don't know, receive pleasure or see people in a different way. I don't know, like,
or just in ways that they can't even understand yet. Because I think that's the other thing too that I learned through listening to true crime is that there really is not that much understanding of how the brain actually works.
no, because we've murdered a lot of them in the beginning. And that's the whole debate as well. Like, should we murder these people that have murdered lots of other folks and hurt them? And then also, like, should we research them? You know, like how much can we get from these people who are narcissists and would love to talk about themselves and make you go down the spiral that we don't know whether it's the truth or not. So I can see both ways.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I do wish there was more research.
I think that
To just kind of recognize it a little earlier.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I think that that's the ultimate goal is crime prevention. You know, we hear all these stories of murder and death, and I think a lot of times the goal is to make us aware of what's going on in the real world, and that the reality that there are people like this out there, to then recognize the signs, which then hopefully lead to crimes actually being prevented. So I found value in true crime in that way, and I think it's an important thing to have for that actual reason. The reason that I started listening to it was more of a kind of that curiosity of what's going on outside of my bubble and what's going on outside of my hometown, which is a very like sheltered and safe community. And I think you can get very lost in that kind of comfort of being safe in a very close-knit community. So it was honestly more of just like an exploration of what else is going on. And this is like really like a dark side of the world that people don't talk about.
No, they don't want to talk about, or those that particularly don't listen to true crime don't want to surround themselves knowing. Like, I mean, you know, what's the phrase?
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss. So
yeah,
like,
I agree. I think that's exactly it. You know, people don't want to acknowledge it, and also I think that it's easier to just live in your own bubble.
But you know what these communities are also doing, because a lot of these violence are done to a lot of women. I mean, also trans folks and gay men, but like, it's giving us these stories to then better prepare ourselves for if there are any signs, we can recognize them or we can help somebody else. So I think it is important to at least, if something goes like is in the media, listen and like just because you don't know what information you'll receive that then will prevent or help somebody else in the future. So, and if you're just ignoring everything, I don't know.
No, I think it's unfortunately it's a scary world out there, and we all gotta face up to that reality sometimes and just be prepared. You know, I don't think it's about living in fear. I think it's just about being aware of it and
just
being
having
prepared.
To me, it's just like a mental weapon where I can then just store, and then if I need it, it'll be there.
Yeah.
Just recognizing signs too.
Recognizing signs. Well, we thought maybe talk about some of our standout My Favorite Murders edition of the Deadlights pod.
Yeah.
Maybe just talk about one or two that really have stood out. I'm curious to hear what you have what you've brought.
I have brought a couple of them that I have listened both on My Favorite Murder and Crime Junkie. Shout out. Those are my two to-goes for true crime. And one of them is Israel Keys, which I don't know if you've heard of him. I'm really terrible with names, so I just sometimes can remember only what they have done.
Mm-hmm.
But Israel Keys was an ex-Marine veteran, and he hid kill kits because he traveled for 10 years around the country, and he literally would just go there sometimes to just kind of scope the area, see how easy it would be to like kill somebody. And in these like kill kits, he would bury them, and there would be like barrels full of like weapons that he was going to use, money, and then like other extra things that would help him hide if he were ever to be caught. And like he would bury them. He knew the location, so then sometimes he would come back again and then have the sensation of like wanting to kill, and everything was there for him.
He prepared himself. Wow.
He did.
Jesus.
I can't remember exactly how many people he murdered, but they are kill kits that they have dug up in recent years, that he had, like, obviously was planning on coming back. And they predict that he hid about like 100 of them or something like that throughout the country. God. I think he's only murdered about like 6 or so people. Don't quote me again. But one of his last kills that got him caught was that he was in a Starbucks drive-thru, and he saw that he had like been patrolling it. He noticed that the girl in there was alone. She was closing up by herself, and then he goes through the drive-thru and tries to like get in. And I can't remember exactly what had happened, but he doesn't end up killing her. I think he like tries to shoot her through
over his frappuccino.
No, I think he just like had the instinct of killing, and he
urge.
wanted to, before he went home, because he had a family. He had a wife and kids. And I don't know exactly what the wife thought about all these like trips and stuff. I think she thought that it was just a part of his job or something. But yeah, I thought those kill kits were...
That's pretty fucked up.
Fucking...
That's scary.
Eerie.
Yeah.
Like, it is so scary.
Well, and I don't know this story specifically, but this kind of correlation between,
planned.
Well, he was trained as a Marine. He was an ex-Marine, so he has that kind of like mentality of, recon, scoping out the area, planning ahead, always being prepared no matter where you go, which is taught in the military. So it's kind of like, you create a killing machine, and then what happens when the killing machine comes home? When
you're putting away your little robot, like, they're still going to want to have that instinct.
It's not a robot. It's a human who's going to be out there having a life. So it's scary. Like, that brings in like another kind of whole element of it, like the rehabilitation of soldiers is obviously not there. I mean, when did this happen?
About 2012.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
Oof.
So like, yeah, and then I think he was like in his early 30s or mid 30s.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, he was doing that before, and he got paid for it. He got recognized, and now he's having to go home and live a normal life, quote unquote.
Clearly he couldn't.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Jeez.
So scary.
Yeah. Really scary. Really scary. And I'm sure there's barrels out there that have not been recovered.
Yeah.
And just
they're trying to figure out where they're at, because he only had correlations and stuff like that sometimes of the ones that he had used or something like that. So he was very organized. He had also robbed banks. So that's how he had the extra cash and a lot of the tubs and stuff. So
Okay. Gotcha.
yeah.
This guy.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Monster.
Scary.
Just to even have the thought.
Yeah.
Not that the
Well, it's more like have the instinct.
instinct.
Like the instinct to just do that.
Yeah. Like I need to find somebody to murder before.
What if you run into someone like that on the street by accident?
Well, have you had the thought of like someone in here could be a serial killer,
Yeah.
or that old man could have gone into like a raping rampage and nobody has caught him?
Yes,
because the Golden State Killer was so fucking old,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and they just caught him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's creepy. It like kind of. It's always he was such a nice boy.
Yeah, he was a
I
regular.
never would have thought.
I didn't even think that he was even capable of doing that. He would always tip me $20.
He was such a nice neighbor. He always waved at me when he went by. We waved so low and goodbye.
And then he would get in his car and just flip me off, and I was just like.
I mean, I saw a dead body, but I didn't think anything of it.
I did see a lot of ropes that he was purchasing, but I just disregarded them.
I just thought he had tie-dye shirt, like a red tie-dye shirt. I didn't think it was blood splatter.
I am pretty 40-20 on this one and 30-20 on this one. I can't see all that well.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Sorry, we were just playing Every Neighbor Ever.
So what's yours?
Well, one that always sticks out to me. This is a story that I heard on Sword and Scale, which is a podcast that I listen to. Shout out. Really, very like informational, heavy forward podcast. No jokes, anything. It's like very just like presents the facts of the case essentially.
Nice. No jokes.
No jokes.
Like My Favorite Murder.
Not like this. Not like what we're doing right now.
No. True.
It was more like a story that was kind of presented as an ethical dilemma too. It was kind of interesting. So this guy who was living in California, he was addicted to drugs, and something about California is some states have this 3-strike law where if you get charged with a crime 3 times, then you have to get the like maximum penalty or something at the 3rd time. So he was a drug addict, and he had I think committed 2 drug-related felonies. So he had 2 strikes essentially, and he got back out, and he was starting to do better, but then started to go back to doing drugs again, and then started robbing or started burglarizing places. It was never crimes where he put anyone in danger. It was he would rob a place when people weren't there and just take their money so that he could then do drugs. So he was never actually putting a person in harm's way intentionally. Not giving him any excuse, but just, I'm just trying to paint the picture of this person.
He has a mental disorder, which is addiction, and
he will do anything to get drugs.
Instead of him being thrown to jail, he should have gone to go get rehabbed and stuff, and maybe hopefully help him a little better.
And he was on his 3rd strike, and so he started burglarizing places again because he was doing drugs, and he came upon a house like in the middle of nowhere. It was like a gated house, but the gate was open, and he kind of was just like walking around the house, and it had one of those like security booths like in the front, like right by the gate, where you get like checked in or whatever. And he was walking by, and the light was off when he walked in that little booth, and then he like walked around the house. He was trying to see if he can get in, and then he couldn't find any way in, so he started coming back out, and a light had been turned on in that security booth. And he was walking by and he saw a safe sitting right there in the security booth. And he just made a quick decision to run in there and grab the safe and got out of there. And so he eventually popped the safe open somehow. And it was mostly like, I think like legal documents. And then he like dig a little farther and he found a bag of used diapers. And then he like dug a little farther and found, I think it was a USB. And he plugged in the USB, and on the USB it was like kiddie porn. And so it was, I think, somehow made clear that whoever is using the diapers was the same kid that was in these pictures. So he was taking the pictures, essentially. So now this guy, yeah, really fucked up. Now this guy has a dilemma of, if he turns this into the police, he has to admit that he broke in and burglarized the place, which would then get him his third strike and thrown in jail. Or say nothing and this person gets away with whatever they're doing. And he had to kind of make that ethical choice of, what do you do? What do you do? What he eventually did was he sent the USB to the cops in the mail. But they eventually found out who sent it, and they caught up with him. And they did end up arresting the guy who ended up being, I think it was a relative was molesting their like younger niece or nephew or something, and taking the pictures. So that person did end up getting arrested too. But because of this third strike law that was enacted, the guy that turned in this guy was actually facing more time than the guy that was like molesting this child. So it was like a weird backwards, like,
I do remember
our justice system,
yeah,
like kind of this backwards thing. But that always stuck with me of like, what would you do if you knew you were going to go to jail probably forever, but had to expose this person or say nothing, and this person keeps it's a crazy situation.
I think I mean, who knows, under those circumstances of addiction and stuff, I don't know if I would have done the right thing, but I would like to think that I would have wanted to expose this man for doing these things to children, and perhaps I would just be better off in jail anyway, because then it looks like I'm not going to get better. So
yeah, it's
not that, fucking jail is better than a mental institution or rehab, but I don't know.
Yeah.
No, and that's a fucked up fucking law.
Yeah. I think it was this guy who was molesting his, I believe, niece was facing, I think, like 35 years, but the guy who turned him in was facing like 300 some years because of the compounding things on the third strike law.
Are you going to do that for rape as well? Like, people don't go hard on rapists.
Yeah. And the reality is like, this guy obviously was breaking the law. I'm not condoning burglary, but it wasn't robbery. It wasn't like he was putting any physical person in danger by arming, like being armed with a weapon and like robbing them. He was breaking it when people weren't there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just like it was weird legal, like, loophole plus like this weird ethical dilemma. There is a happy ending. His lawyer really pushed the narrative of what the truth was behind this situation. And so there was a campaign for his release, and the judge ended up just paroling him. So he did not have to spend 300 some years in jail. Without
parole.
Right.
Which is even worse. Because then he'll never have a chance to like have a retrial or just like stating his case. Yeah.
No.
Holy
So
shit.
ended okay
Yeah.
for him, but still, it could have been a really fucked up, upside down situation.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Wow.
Freaking crazy.
Well, that's it also taps in a little bit on Donnie Darko and like would you expose this man who everybody seems to be a really good guy when you know you're gonna die?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Or yeah, and in that situation he didn't expose him in the end, but he still had to live with the truth of, like, Patrick Swayze's character had to live with the truth that he is got a problem, and he's
a piece of garbage.
He's a piece of shit.
Of shit.
A big shit.
Unrecyclable shit.
And a person like that, we hope, and I hope, eventually does get exposed. You know?
Oh, yeah.
So, something like everyone gets their comeuppance, you know?
Yes.
I think.
What comes around goes around.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think that's two great stories that we
true.
We brought.
Yeah.
I like both those. I think we should do this again, though.
We definitely should. There's still a lot more.
There's a lot of things that we both like in true
not
crime.
to turn every Minisode into true crime. But
once in a while we'll
yeah.
pepper these in.
Yeah.
Bring you some more stories.
Yeah, especially if we run into a story that like a movie that is about a serial killer or inspired by a serial killer or serial-esque, we can then definitely bring you some more serial killers.
Stuff, for sure. Because we know you probably like this stuff too.
Yeah.
I hope.
I mean, more than likely.
More than likely.
We're all in this.
I mean, the reason we kind of did this was because I feel like there is this intersection of horror and true crime, you know, this morbid fascination and this kind of dark fascination with the dark side of reality and the dark side of the mind. And that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. I mean, that's why I fucking love horror. Because whenever I hear these stories, like, it inspires me of a character or to write a little short something or a movie. So
all connected.
It all connects, bro.
Going back to back.
Zipper.
All right.
Yeah, well, that's us.
That's
us sipping you out.
That's us zipping you out.
Or sipping you in. But well, you can follow me on Instagram at ColorMeLeslie.
And me at BeepBeepRichieT. And you can also find us at the Deadlights Pod.
Deadlights.
Also check out Playground Social, which is the studio that we are recording this at. But until next minisode.
Yeah,
let's get
mini spooky.
Look out, because reality is scary too.